Last year saw an increase in audience ratings for WYPR. The station received a record number of industry honors, congratulations, for its work in 2020, including 7 first-place awards from the Chesapeake Associated Press Broadcasters Association and 2 regional Edward R. Murrow Awards. That's awesome. LaFontaine holds an MBA from University of Baltimore and Towson University and a bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Miami. He lives in Edner Gardens, no stalking, Lakeside with his wife Denise and 2 adult children. And I love that neighborhood behind the old Memorial Stadium.
It's beautiful.
It's awesome. So welcome, LaFontaine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So first, thank you to the entire J. Moore family, the whole J. Moore crew for inviting me to do this. It's interesting. We originally had this scheduled for, it was like just before like the world changed with COVID. And so they stuck with it and reached back out to me, and I was happy to come out and spend some time with you all. I have some prepared remarks, but I'd love for this to just be more of a open conversation. One of the things that they asked me to talk a little bit about is local journalism and news and the importance of both producing and consuming good news. I think it was Ida B. Wells who once said that before the people can act, they must know, and there is no better teacher than the press. And I think that still rings true today, especially in these very tumultuous times where we find ourselves. It used to be a situation where news was almost like an insurance policy. So there was like a handful of days, big news days in any year. And many of you can think about it. It's like, oh, I remember 9/11 and I remember where I was and I remember what happened. And, I remember this and I remember that. It was a handful of big news days every year. That's it. And for those in the media and in journalism and news, whether you were in radio or television or print, and of course now sort of digital and interactive, it was how you handled those 5 or 6 big news days of the year that then determined where people would spend their time the other 350 something days out of the year when the sky wasn't falling, when all was well with the world. And my, have times changed. The news cycle has sped up almost permanently. I think we sort of live in times where it is almost as if we don't get a break from the news. And I don't know that that's actually a good thing in some ways. I guess it's good when you're the president and general manager of a local NPR news station. But I don't know that that's good for our health. I don't know that that's good for our society, but I hope that what we can talk about today are some tools, some things to think about as it relates to the news and journalism that we are consuming, and how to safeguard ourselves and our families and our communities during these times where having access to good, sound, well-researched information with nuance and with integrity and with character when it really matters. So of course, we had 2020, and then many of us thought, man, can't wait for 2020 to be over. And then 2021 was just more of the same. We had, one of the most contentious election seasons in our country's history. We had the deadly insurrection. We had COVID. We have all of these things, natural disasters. And one of the things that has been a constant there is having news and information to help you figure out your place in all of that. And I hope that for many of you that WYPR and by extension, WNPR, I'm sorry, NPR has been a part of how, thank you, how you've been able to cope and to make sense of that. I should also note that in addition to being president and general manager of WYPR, I also have the absolute pleasure of serving as the chairman of the board of NPR. And so having that sort of national perspective also gives me quite a different viewpoint on what's happening in communities across the country as it relates not only to national news, but more specifically to local news. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about local news because I think local news is where it's at. Having reporters, whether they are shining a light in dark places in our local school boards and education systems, city halls, that is really, really important to our democracy. Going back to the Ida B. Wells quote, if you don't have good, reliable reporting at that level, how do you make good decisions? How do you decide about where you're going to live and where you're going to send your kids to school and what activities you're going to take part in? And of course, during the health pandemic, we were relying on that information to keep us safe and to make very, very real in the moment decisions about where we should go and who we should interact with and what was safe to do and what was not safe to do. And even in that, there was a degree of both misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation being, information that's just, it's not quite accurate. It's off a bit, and perhaps there might be some intention behind it, maybe not. But disinformation, much more dangerous, because there is a deliberate attempt to deceive or to not bring light to the situations that we find ourselves in. And when it comes down to our health and our well-being, I think we all would agree that having access to good, sound information is really, really important. How many of you have heard someone say, "I have the right to my own opinion"? How many of you believe you have the right to your own opinion? I like the honesty. I actually don't believe, and this is not for anyone else, I don't actually believe that I have the right to my own opinion. And that is because unless what have I done to garner that opinion? And if I have not done any research, if that opinion is not backed up by sound information, if that opinion has not been developed by something just other than my gut, then maybe I don't really have the right to that opinion. It sounds good. But I heard someone say a number of years ago that you really don't have the right to an opinion that you haven't yet earned. And so I ask you, you all are all smart people. How do you earn your opinion? Anybody? How do you earn your opinion? Research. You talk to people who are knowledgeable in that area. And boy, do we have a lot of that going on, right? Others? Just to listen to other perspectives. Experience is very important. Experience is supposed to be one of the best teachers. Other thoughts? How do you earn your opinion? Be objective. So that's why after I heard that years ago, I said, man, I'm never going to say again, I have the right to my own opinion, because I don't have the right to an opinion that I haven't done some work to actually earn. Now, the other thing that I've heard said is you may have the right to your own opinion, but you don't have the right to your own facts. Now that one, that one I believe in. And that is why I think the work that we do at WYPR and NPR and many of our trained journalists is really, really important, because it is about separating the facts. If we don't have facts are the building blocks of truth, is what I like to say. And so how do we get at what the truth is if we are not operating at least from a set of core facts that we can all sort of rely on? So I'd like to just have you think about those two concepts of how are you earning your opinions, and are you basing that in facts? And I think it's the role of journalism in many cases to help us to be able to do that. Then you throw into this crazy mix that we have here. You have bias, we have now social media and all of these other platforms that oftentimes sort of get lumped into the category of the media and news, when in many cases they are not. And in some cases they help us aggregate news. But a lot of what we see online, a lot of what we read on social media doesn't come with some of the fact checking and some of the research and some of the background that our reporting gets, whether it's coming from the Baltimore Sun, whether it's coming from WYPR, whether it's coming from the Baltimore Brew or Fishbowl or any number of places. So that's another thing for us really to keep in mind. The other thing that is interesting, because the news cycle has sped up in the way that it has in order to sort of keep up with just the unending, just big news events, is that there's always a rush to be first. And that can be dangerous. And I think one of the things that we have prided ourselves on, both at YPR and at NPR, is not necessarily prioritizing being first, but prioritizing being correct and being accurate. I would much rather put my trust in a news source that prioritizes getting the story correct over one who prioritizes being the first. And we all have sort of interacted with outlets whose priority, it seems to be just to be the first. With that said, I will say that with what we're seeing happen in the local news and journalism landscape, communities are relying on public radio stations to become more primary sources of news and information for their communities. And what that does mean is we do have to be a bit quicker in sort of uncovering the facts and getting to the meat of the story in a way that that's kind of a new muscle for us in public media. In fact, NPR used to have a saying a bunch of years ago, and it was, at NPR, we don't break the news, but when the news breaks, we help you put it back together. And that really sort of encapsulated the thinking that, yes, we're not going to be the first, and we're not going to be out there chasing every story, but we're going to help you understand the news of the day. We're going to bring context. We're going to bring diverse folks to the table to discuss the news of the day. But that has changed. I mean, NPR is now breaking news. WYPR is now breaking news, because that is what our community needs from us, because the news and journalism landscape is changing before our eyes. And I won't say too much about this, but the Baltimore Sun, now under control of Alden Capital, is not quite the sun that it was. And we don't know ultimately what's going to happen there. But a community that has less journalists out um, is a poorer community, because we need more people asking questions and poking and prodding and holding our elected officials and our powerful accountable, and what is the saying? Comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. We need more of that, and not less of that. So just another thing really to think about. One of the other things that I think we all have to look out for is who is funding the news and the information that we are consuming. And this is one of the things that I absolutely love about what I do. I feel very, very fortunate to wake up every single day and to do something that I love. Now, don't get me wrong, there are tough days, but I feel very fortunate because not everybody gets to say that they can do something that they love. I spent a number of years in commercial media where we did some good work. But every single day I stand by and I feel proud of the work that we do at WYPR. And part of that is because our work is funded by our community. You probably also, that's right. As a matter of fact, are there any YPR members here? Yes, thank you. Thank you. We couldn't do what we do without you. Some people say if you were building a public media system today, you would not build it this way, where you give away your product every single day. You just give it away. Hey, anybody who wants it, come get it. And we don't charge you a dime. We simply ask if you find value in it, not if, when you find value in it, because you will, that you will support it with your gift to help make sure that it's there for others. Isn't that a crazy business model? Like, would anybody here start a business and say, yeah, we're just going to give our product away and the people are going to love it. They're going to come in droves. They're going to love it so much that they're just going to put their own price tag on it and say, you know what, this is worth $300 or $400 to me. So here you go. You wouldn't do that. But we did some 50 something years ago. When the Public Broadcasting Act was passed and NPR was founded and Corporation for Public Broadcasting and President Lyndon B. Johnson and all, we did that. And that's it. It's been a resilient business model because people like some of you continue to listen, find value in it, and support it. Why is that important? It's important because it allows us to do work in ways that our commercial counterparts either can't or won't do, because they are beholden to shareholders, to advertisers, and to others in ways that we are not. Now, don't get me wrong. Do we have businesses and organizations who serve as corporate sponsors? Absolutely. But it is quite different from commercial advertising. Do we get a little slice of money from the federal government? Yes, the federal appropriation comes through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We get what they call a community service grant every year that makes up about 6.5% of our budget. But by and large, the vast majority of our budget comes from the donations of people in the community who find value in what we do. And that just allows us to, without fear or favor, to go out every single day and do the job of putting high quality content on the air, online, on mobile devices, on podcasts that meet the unique needs of our local community. And as crazy a business model as that is, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that. And even as it relates to our corporate underwriters or our sponsors, and that's both locally here at WYPR and even nationally at NPR, one of the things that we are very careful to do is to let you know when there is money involved somehow in what it is that we're doing. And so one example, which I hesitated to use today when I learned that we would be streaming live on Facebook, is the example of Facebook. So how many of you have heard in the news this week? They've had a bad week. They have had a bad week, and I am not here to add insult to injury, but it is a really good example. It's the example of a business model of supporting journalism that says, without fear or favor, we are going to tell the story, and we are going to give our community, our country, our nation, what it needs. And in this, for those of you who are not familiar, there was some research that came out of Facebook about whether or not they were prioritizing profits over the health and sanity of their users, and lots of questions around some of their decisions and practices. And I was really, really happy because when the story broke and I'm driving into work, or maybe I was on a walk and I'm listening to WYPR, and we're within morning edition, and coming out of, I think it was the top of the hour news, one of the first stories was, hey, this is what's happening at Facebook, and we're going to unpack this for you. And guess what? Facebook is one of NPR's sponsors. We're going to tell you that up front. I listened again today. Was it Ari Shapiro, I think it was, who had an interview? Yeah. Oh, we got some listeners in here. Oh, I love it. It was Ari who said he's interviewing, he's giving you, all sides of the story. He's talking to one of the VPs from inside of Facebook, and then he's talking to one of our elected officials who has a different, and they're not worried one bit that Facebook is one of NPR's sponsors, because that is that speaks to the transparency and the integrity of what we do. And that only works when you know that you are funded by and large by the people, because the Facebook money goes or some other money goes, our communities will sustain us. And so that's really important. And an example, and as you listen and as you read and as you take in media and news and journalism, take note of that. Are they honest with you? Do they tell you when they are reporting on folks who are also funding them in some sort of way? If they are not, I'm not saying you shouldn't, read them or listen to them, but you may just want to think about that. Think about who's funding the journalism and the news that you're using. Another thing to think about here, and this is a this is an interesting one. How do they report on themselves? The mark of a quality news and journalism organization is one where you can see clearly how they report on themselves. And let's just say yours truly got a big old heaping spoonful of that this past week. So without going into all of the details of it, but I get a message from my dad saying, "Hey son, I heard you were in the New York Times. It must have been a rough week for you." And what he was referring to was the fact that there was a story that broke this week involving a member of NPR's board of directors. And it made the national news. And guess what? I got calls from David Folkenflik, NPR's reporter, about that. They did stories that had my statements in it about how NPR and the board were going to handle this situation. It's not comfortable, but I wouldn't have it any other way. because it again speaks to the firewall that that we have between the journalism and the business operations and the finances that says, again, without fear or favor, we must do the reporting. I am still answering questions. I got an email from the NPR ombudsman. Excuse me. They now called the public editor, and I'll talk about that next because I think that's another important thing to look for. But how do the news organizations that you choose to spend your time with, how do they report on themselves? Is there still honesty and transparency when they have to air their own dirty laundry and talk about issues that are, we saw an issue with the New York Times and one of their podcasts fairly recently, and they had to do some reporting on themselves. So that's another thing to think about. The other thing I sort of mentioned, ombudsman or public editor, very few news organizations around still have a public editor or an ombudsman, which really is someone whose job it is almost to advocate for the people in checking the organization and its journalism and checking its work and the integrity behind it. And I am proud to say that NPR is one of the few news organizations in this country that still employs a full-time public editor. That gives me a level of confidence in the work that's being done. So we talked about the money behind it. We talked about how are they reporting on themselves. We talk about the role of on the ombudsman. Oh, I know the other thing. That is, what do they do when they make mistakes? We all make mistakes. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how great your reporters are. They are going to make mistakes. They are going to get details incorrect. Something, it happens. The mark of a good, sound news and journalism organization is one that will stand up, hang a lantern on it, and say, we made a mistake. We are issuing a correction. We are reposting, or we are adding to this to show where we went wrong. We will show our work. And I would argue that there are not a lot of news organizations around that are willing to live up to their mistakes. And we all make them. No one is perfect. So that's the other thing to really think about as you continue to consume news and information, is to think about things like, how are they handling mistakes when they are made? So with that, I would love to open this up to have a bit more of a discussion. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have as it relates to what we are doing, perhaps locally, with growing our local newsroom here at WYPR. I could take some questions as it relates to NPR National and what's happening there. I can take questions about just in general the state of local journalism. But I would just say, you've also probably heard that if you are not paying for the product, then you probably are the product. And so we've gotten into a bit of a situation where we almost expect our news to be free. But so much goes into ensuring that what you get in your news, whether it's in print, whether it's in digital, audio, or visual form, so much goes into making sure that that it's accurate, and that it meets the needs of your local community or meets the needs of our country. And I would encourage all of you to make a commitment to support that. That means supporting organizations like JMOR. That means supporting organizations like WYPR. That means having a subscription to the Baltimore Sun, or even those publications where they are free. There's an opportunity there for you to support their sponsors, because know that work is not free, and there are dedicated people behind the information that we consume, and they deserve our support. I truly believe that journalism is the oxygen for democracy. I don't want to live in a society where we don't have folks who are going to look in dark corners and ask the tough questions and hold the powerful accountable. And that comes at a price. And I hope that you all are willing to join me. I am a sustaining member of 1, 2, 3 public radio stations. I also support NPR. I can't tell you how many subscriptions I have to various publications, because I believe in the value of having access to reliable information. So I ask you to join me in sort of changing this paradigm that or this mindset that news is free, because it's not. And if it is, then they're selling you is what they're selling. They're selling your eyeballs, they're selling your attention. And so I ask you to just join me in that, because our local community, our nation, and our world needs a strong free press. So thank you very much for your attention. And I would love to take any questions that you might have. Yes, sir. Wow, that's a great question. How do we get young people? You would come out of the box with just a zinger, wouldn't you? We have a young person here. Why don't we ask her? Come have a conversation with me. Okay. All right. So you are 13, correct? 12. 12. So this gentleman's question is, how do we get young people to care about the news?
Well, definitely having an influence, like parents who always talk about it, or even celebrities who talk about it, since they're always on the news. Since they're always on the news is definitely one way.
Okay.
Another way is definitely school, or maybe even social media. Like having an article pop up about what's happening in the world is really meaningful for me, because I like informing people about things, and also just letting your friends know. Wow.
Oh my goodness. I think we are in good hands. Oh my goodness. So I would just add onto that to say, I think part of the challenge for many in legacy media is that we have to stop thinking that young people are just going to find us. I have a saying, we need to be on every platform where they roam. And so that means we have to find ways of adapting our content to meet this young lady wherever she is. If she's on her cell phone, whether it is through social media or just through the web browser on her phone, whether it is through a podcast that she might listen to. She also gave us another little tidbit there, which is that, young people care about celebrities. And so maybe this is a situation, and when we've been having some conversations both locally and nationally about this, is that, how do we begin to induce sampling with our news product by infusing more entertainment, arts, culture, and some of the things that are going to be a bit of a doormat to welcome in younger and more diverse audiences, because our future depends on it. This is our future. And so to your question, if we are not finding ways to get younger people to consume news and information. One, we're not going to be in such a good position because we're going to depend on them to take care of us. That's the first thing. So thank you. We've got a question here. And don't come as hard as he did. Goodness gracious.
So I'm from the type of, business where I can be off social media for 7 to 8 hours. I'm in sales. I'm talking to people. I do insurance benefits. So yesterday, Facebook went down, like a few hours after the 60 Minutes expose. And again, I check my Facebook, but it's not my entire life. You would think the world crashed down because 6 hours, 7, 8 hours, it was out. So, people were used to that as like the source for the news. I went to Google if I wanted to, but I was doing work, stuff to do. But again, some people were flipping out. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, I have a subscription to the Sun paper. I get Sunday delivery. I'm just used to it because I've always read it my entire life. Do I think it's terrific? No, but I want to support it that way. But you would think with social media that, basically tops everything, and it's not. So it's like that's your competition, unfortunately. And I listen to talk radio, all the drive stations. So, I guess I'm in a small minority, but that's what I noticed yesterday.
Well, yeah, so in addition to the news story, then they went down for a few hours. How many of you were going into withdrawal during that period because you couldn't get your Facebook? Okay. Honesty, I love it. But it's interesting. There's been quite a discussion in the news and journalism world about, and it's ironic that we're doing this as we're streaming this on Facebook Live, but but there's been a discussion about whether or not it's time to, as news and journalism organizations, to sort of cut Facebook off, so to speak, and to remove our content. And there's also this discussion about, where we should prioritize and sort of how we sort of develop that funnel for getting people into our digital platforms when using platforms that we don't control, because they could go down, they could go out of business. And, how are we making sure that we have a good funnel or a good pipeline of folks into our digital properties? But it'll be interesting to see how things continue to sort of play out with Facebook in the news. So, other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, it's hard because in a lot of ways we have switched almost from a model of broadcasting to narrowcasting, to curating content to line up with a particular ideology or a particular way of thinking, creating sort of these echo chambers. And so it is difficult. There's if I could put a plug in for my PBS family. If you have not watched it's the what's the name of the series? But they are the name of the series will come to me in a second. But they did a 2-part piece last week on William Hearst. And boy, was that fascinating. And you see how much it parallels with what's happening today in our news environment. And it speaks a bit to, I think, what you're talking about, because there was, William Hearst had a different approach to sort of building that Hearst empire that wasn't exactly rooted necessarily in the tenets of journalism and objectivity and some of the other things that we talk about today. So just a plug there. I'll remember the name of it. Thank you, American Experience. And it's a 2-part series. It's long, so like crack open a bottle of wine over maybe 2 nights. I did it over 2 nights, but it is fascinating, and you will see so many parallels to today that I think, at least for me, got me to thinking about the future of journalism and got me to thinking about what's next. But to answer your question more directly, I mean, I think as consumers of news, we have to be more discerning consumers, and we have to dig a little bit deeper, and we have to sort of go through some of the checklists that I've talked about here and say, okay, how's this outfit report on themselves? Do they have a public editor? Do they have a forward-facing integrity statement? Are they transparent about who's funding their journalism? And I hate to say it, it's work. There are not very many of them. But I would argue for those of us that are out there, and I count us in that few, they are worth supporting because our future depends on having access to that information. Everybody likes to have their thoughts on things affirmed. But it's just really, really important to be able to rely on an outlet that is also not only going to affirm you, but is going to challenge you, that's going to help you earn your opinions. And again, it's tougher because we've gone from this broadcasting to this narrowcasting. Well, if you sort of believe along these lines, then come over here and get your news. And if you believe along these lines, then you come over here and get your news. And so my argument is that when you find those that exhibit some of the things that I talked about, you got to hold them. You got to hold them close, and those have to be really your rock, so that you're not sort of getting caught up in these echo chambers. Yeah, I do think I think the BBC does a really good job. The Guardian, yes. Yeah. For what it's worth, I think the New York Times does a great job. Again, I go back to everybody makes mistakes. I like to see when mistakes are made that you stand up and you say, man, we blew that one. But here's where we're going to tell you what we did. One of the other things I really like about what's now happening, sort of this convergence, this blurring of lines between media, is that, the New York Times now has an audio division that rivals that of anybody. And part of what's happening there is some really exciting stuff. I don't know if any of you listen to The Daily, but to me, that's really powerful, because then you have, talk about transparency, you have an opportunity for reporters to show their work. That's what it's about. It's sort of letting you behind the curtain, and it's the reporters showing you the work that went into what you're reading. And I think to a certain degree, we all have to start doing more of that, because there is a skepticism, I think, about quote unquote the media. And so the way we answer that is we got to show our work. We got to be transparent. We got to let people know, well, this is what went into us uncovering this information about Facebook or whomever, or this is the team that brought you this piece, or I think that's on us. That's one of the things that we have to do to help sort of rebuild the trust that the American people has in journalism and news and the free press. I think I saw another hand. Yes. I sure hope so. We've got locally, of course, Morgan has its School of Global Journalism. We've got the Philip Merrill School just down the road, University of Maryland. We need more people like you thinking about careers in news and journalism. And I mentioned the term convergence, and I think that's going to hopefully help us because it's not your granddaddy's media and journalism. I mean, it is. We're now in an era where what used to be print is now digital, is now audio, is now posting videos, is now social, is now mobile. And I, for one, look forward to, and I think we're casting a wide net, hoping to continue to attract and retain, and I'll go back to this, a younger and more diverse workforce in order to reflect what we want to see in our audience and in our membership. So I hope you're right. And every time I can get in front of young people and talk about my journey in the media and news and journalism, I take it out. I will come and talk to your kindergarten bake sale, and because it is so important. And again, as I started earlier, I feel very, very fortunate. My father told me early on, he said, you know what, find something that you would do if they paid you $1 million a year or nothing at all. And I found that. And so I feel very fortunate. And so I feel a duty and obligation to try to pass that on to other young people, because I think this is an exciting, rewarding, sometimes tough career. Yes, sir. So I'm going to disagree with you. I think the problem of local journalism and local news and storytelling and perspectives, I think the problem is so big. I think it is more than any 1, 2, 3, or a dozen of us could ever handle. And so I personally don't think there's an oversaturation, because when I look at many of the issues or the ills in our community, maybe I have a bit of a one-track mind in this way, but I feel like the lack of accountability journalism and the lack of enterprise work, where we're not just talking about a bunch of general assignment reporters who can go out and chase a bunch of stories, but they own a content vertical or they own a beat. Hey, this person owns housing. This person owns the environment. This person owns City Hall and the State House, so that you can go deep and develop contacts and uncover things that it's just difficult to do when you span out a bunch of general assignment reporters. To me, and again, maybe I have a bit of a one-track mind, but when I look at our issues and the things that we grapple with as a community, I look back, and I'm a bit of a history buff, and I like to study history. And part of just almost every leap forward, every great movement, every step forward, man, you're gonna find a journalist who was poking and prodding and shining a light in darkness and saying, hey, what's going on over there? And so I guess that's why I disagree, because I think if we had more of it, I think we begin to address many of the issues in our community. The question becomes, what's the right way to go about that? But I do think the problem is, and I'm aware of the folks you're talking to. I think the problem, and it's not just in Baltimore, it is in communities across the country, you know, the so-called news deserts and places where you don't have someone who is going to sit through a city council meeting and go through an agenda and a bunch of things to find something that maybe people don't want you to find. And so to me, the problem is so much bigger than any one of us, even if the beloved Baltimore Sun was what it was, I forget how many years ago, when there were, what did somebody say, 400 journalists? Even then, I would argue there's still a place for what YPR does and what J Moore is going to do and what the Brew and what this, because it's that important. And maybe we get to a point where we look around and we say, wow, you know what, we've rid ourselves of some of this, and maybe at that point, but I don't know that I feel that there's an oversaturation at this point. But again, I admit I have a bit of a one-track mind in that I think this is the oxygen for our democracy. It allows us to do the things that we need to do to be accountable to each other and for each other. So yes, that's my answer. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Mm. Local music. Yes. Kelly Bell. Wow. Wonderful question. I am so glad. I didn't plant him here to ask that question. I am so glad you asked that question. So what you should tell them is that WTMD is about to become a part of the Your Public Radio family, where our only goal is to super serve the needs of folks in this community, now serving not only the head, but the heart and the spirit with news, information, storytelling, perspectives, music, arts, culture, all of those things, because we are whole beings. We need to be served in our totality. So you tell them TMD is coming into a family that nothing against Towson University, and I thank Towson University for having a foresight to say, you know what, we should find an appropriate home for WTMD where it can continue to grow and thrive. But they have a different mission than we do. Our only goal is to provide world-class public radio content and to connect it to communities in such a way that we become more than just a radio station, but we become a cultural, journalistic institution. That's the doormat. And we're going to do that. I had a meeting earlier today where we're working on and discussing how we transfer those folks who are currently on air and employed at WTMD onto the Your Public Radio payroll. I was just having a conversation with these gentlemen here about the fact that ideally, when this deal goes through, which will probably be in the next 30 days, the listener probably should not be able to even tell the difference that WTMD is now owned by Your Public Radio versus Towson University. And we've got some exciting plans to grow and enhance what they're doing. I believe a format that has music discovery and a celebration of local music and musicians at its core. I believe that's just a powerful thing that this community needs. We all need a break from the news. Oh my goodness, especially in the last couple of years, and if we can be a part again of serving not only the head but the heart and the spirit through a music format that is beloved, that it is safe with me, and we plan on continuing to grow it and helping it to be even better than it is today. You said what? And then, for the station. So it's funny. The staff is at TMD have asked that question a couple of times, and I will give you the honest answer that I've given them. I could certainly make an argument both ways for either keeping it as WTMD, because think about it. I mean, while at one point it was the call letters were associated with Towson, Maryland. The fact that it is now associated with Total Music Discovery, which speaks to the sort of the moniker for the AAA music discovery formats across the country, is actually a powerful thing. And I could make an argument that holding on to that brand has some value. I could also make the argument that giving it fresh new call letters that sort of leaves behind some of the history but brings forward some of the good and then aligns it more with your public radio, I could make an argument for that as well. And we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. But thank you for that question. I appreciate that. We're really excited about WTMD. Any other TMD listeners here? Yes, yes, yes. Wonderful. It's a great station. Any other questions? Wow. Yes. Wow. Okay. So first, thank you for saying that, because that just really reminds me that again, I think that's also core to our mission is not just reporting on the bad that goes on, but we like to say finding the surprise and the delight and the serendipity that is just a part of what's here in our local community. And I'm glad that you're finding some of that. I think we need to do a little bit more of that. You're sitting next to someone who I think does a fabulous job as a producer on the record with Sheila Cass. And I think they do an absolutely wonderful job of uncovering some of that surprise and delight in our community, because we need that as well. So thank you, and I'm glad that you're finding that. As for what is next, if we weren't on Facebook Live, I might actually be able to answer that question with a little more transparency. No. I think what I will say is that I am just really excited about growing our brand of public media here in Baltimore. And we do absolutely need to successfully transition in WTMD. That is going to create the need for us to think about reimagining our physical space in order to accommodate both stations and staffs. And I think that will also offer us an opportunity to think about the role of public media organizations as conveners in our communities. And how can we perhaps reimagine our space in such a way that we invite the community to come in and be a part of what we're doing, on the music side, on the news side, on the storytelling and perspective side. I believe very, very strongly in this sort of idea of community engagement. And I've said this a few times, and I forget who I stole it from, but they said community outreach is when you're changing someone or something else. True community engagement is when you yourself are changed. And so one of the things that I am excited about in growing our brand of public media is how do we start to connect with the community and engage with them in ways that the community starts to change who we are, and we sort of create this this sort of cycle that allows us to be more responsive and to be more reflective of, to be more inclusive of our community. And so I think that will be a big part of what's next for us. And I think it's going to play itself out in a number of different ways. I do think we also are going to continue to find ways to sort of embrace our digital future. So much of how people are now interacting is not just happening in the linear way of, hey, you've got to turn on your radio and listen to the show when we put it on, versus giving people the opportunity to curate their own listening experience and put those things together when and where they want it and on the platforms that they want. And for our own survival as a local organization and even sort of nationally, I think many of us are thinking about how we embrace that digital future in such a way that we're able to connect with young people. We're able to connect with a more diverse audience, and we're just able to sort of put our tentacles out there in ways that our traditional legacy broadcast has been very successful at for so many years, but we know we need to augment that now with a much stronger digital strategy. Absolutely. Yes, sir. No stupid questions. WYPR 88.1. There you go. So what I'd like you to do when you leave here, you get in your car, tune over to 88.1 and hold in one of those buttons and program it in. And what you're going to find is you're going to find a collection of news and information and storytelling and perspectives. And to your question, the other thing I didn't mention was we're doing some phenomenal stuff in the podcast space. Many of you are familiar with Aaron Hankins' work with Out of the Blocks. And I think another week, we're going to launch his new podcast. And we've got some other things coming up. We're resurrecting our podcast committee that's going to help us to look at both some internal ideas and some other things. But back to you. Yes, 88.1. Just hold that thumb in on one of those buttons. Doesn't matter which one. And any finger. And you can also, we have our WYPR mobile app. For smart speakers, you can tell Alexa to play WYPR. You can visit us online at wypr.org. Thank you for that question, sir. Yes. I would love to come to your school. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's book it. Well, again, thank you all for this opportunity to have this conversation with you. And again, for those of you, I would be remiss if I did not make a plug. If you are not a listener, please give us a try at 88.1. If you are already a listener and you are not a member, at whatever amount works for you and your family's budget, I ask you to become a member and support the station. For those of you who are business owners, I would encourage you, if you would like to connect with an audience that I think both quantitatively and qualitatively is just one of the best audiences in this region, you want to talk to one of those two right here. And again, to Jay Moore, thank you very much for the opportunity.